Thank you. I think it's with the Navajo language. It's not an easy language to learn, and it's a verb-based language, and so we've really been working hard at the terms and especially the verbs, and how it makes how it makes the story sense in terms of knowing what's happening. And I'm just so super proud of the students. They worked super hard at this, and lots of teamwork, and working on the plays since the beginning of the semester, and seeing the results of their work. And so I wanted to ask the students, to reflect upon their courses. Some of them, or many of them, actually maybe most of you, except for a couple of you. This is like the third semester of taking the course. And I think throughout your 3 semesters, and now you're written the play, translation, and so forth, and speaking more of the language, and becoming more knowledgeable about it. Just want you to reflect on that, and then afterwards maybe the audience has some questions.
So the hardest thing was about this play was we had to read and speak on Navajo, and it was translating it. In some words, they don't have a Navajo word for certain things, so I think that was the hardest part of this play. And for reflecting, it feels good to read and to write in Navajo. I am white mountain Apache, so I do get mixed up with Apache words. And it was kind of hard because I couldn't just call my grandma and be like, what does this mean? Can you translate that? Like, I had to call my parents and kind of go from there. But I'm really glad you guys all came. And for me, speaking my language is I get to run for council. Just kidding.
So I grew up off the reservation. Like I said in my introduction, I grew up in Lake Havasu, which is closer to Las Vegas than Phoenix or Tucson. And coming here to U of A and having the opportunity to learn my native language, the Handful Navajo, was unexpected. I didn't expect to come here and find that, but I did, and I really took advantage. However, as hard as we worked, and for me, it was a learning process. Always learning, always learning as I'm going along. And still, just as Professor mentioned, it's a very difficult language. You're not going to learn it in 3 or 4 semesters. So it's an ongoing learning process. It's just the base. From here, this gives me just the base, the foundation for me to keep on learning from here. And it's something I want to continue with my research once I get to graduate school.
So for me, I grew up in Phoenix, so I didn't really grow up with my culture. I grew up with my grandma far away, like 4.5 hours away, and I didn't really know my language in general, and so even just being a part of in the Native community, I wasn't really a part of that because my high school, there was 5,000 of us, but there was only 30 Native American students in general. And so being able to take Navajo courses or even just taking AIS courses here at the U of A, it has helped me be able to be connected with my culture, be connected with my language and everything. And I just want to thank Aresta for being able to introduce me to Navajo, to being able to introduce me, get me back into my culture, get me back into my language. And in the future, I hope to be able to be more fluent and be able to talk with my elders.
Hello, everyone. What I've learned about the first semester is I think blossoming and being able to learn how my ancestor has spoken, especially a friend, and how we have really came a long ways. And I think for me, I already had spoken the language growing up, so I have had to learn as I go along, especially when we learn a new word, especially have different dialects of different oołdísii, and especially different dialects. So it's kind of a long ways for me to blossom and learn new words upon my foundation. So on behalf
my experience is a little bit different. Ałk'iidá didn't know what Bill was taught. I went to immersion school, which is Window Rock Unified School District immersion program. And growing up, my parents, or my maternal and my grandparents and my knowledge did not speak English. So it's my only way was communicating with them. So since I lost them, I was not able to communicate with them in Nááts'íílid anymore. And also my maternal knowledge was a co-talker. And so I kind of took a lot of pride in that. So coming back to you is actually a little bit more emotional for me because I was able to actually kind of revisit my childhood. Thank you.
Taking the class for 3 semesters so far has been a really great experience for me. I personally grew up speaking fluent when I was younger, but last year when I was living in the city, being away from my family, I lost that connection over time, being able to speak with them in Navajo. However, coming back has allowed me to discuss with my family certain Navajo words that I lost over time and rebuilding that connection through this class. So it's been a really great 3 years so far. Thank you.
My experience is kind of similar to Erin's here. My grandparents only spoke Navajo and I couldn't, and so that was taking these classes here is kind of like I don't know, just I don't know. They passed, and I felt like that deep regret of not being able to speak to them in the way that they could to me, and that was just this is just I'm learning, and I'm like, oh my god, I'm getting close to my grandparents that way.
For me, I never would have thought that I would have been able to speak Navajo. I grew up with a lot of my parents, and especially my great-grandparents, they only speak Navajo. And even now, a lot of my parents, they still speak to each other and have conversations in Navajo. And it was kind of weird growing up, just listening to it and not being able to kind of understand it. And I grew up on the reservation, but I moved out to the city later on. And just taking this class, I never would have thought I would have got to this level of confidence in speaking Navajo and understanding it. And it's interesting because when I go home, I'm surprised at how much I can understand about the conversations around me. And it's interesting to see how far we've all came, especially because we wrote this whole play. And I just never knew I would have been able to do that at the start of this class.
I'm not Navajo and half Hopi. Growing up, I was very much around both cultures, but my family was more geared towards the Hopi side, so that's majorly what I learned growing up. Mainly because my mother was very traditional, my father is very modern, he doesn't speak Navajo. But as time went on, sort of lost connections with my mother's side from them all passing. Most of my family on her side is gone, as well as my mother being gone. So that's one of the big things that plays into me learning Navajo now, is that I still have my father and his family, and that's pretty much it. So it's just another way for me to connect with my grandparents while they're still here. And it's given me the opportunity to have meaningful conversations with my grandmother every week, whether it's about writing things for the play, or just new words that I found out, or hearing a word in class that is not in our textbook, but we see it, or we've heard it before, and it's different. So, learning Navajo for me has just been a way to fully understand myself as a human being, and sort of realize where I'm coming from, because I am from 2 different cultures, and I take pride in both of them as well. So, it's been a great experience so far. I can hear the differences from when I first started to now, and I hopefully continue to learn more as I go on.
Hi everyone. I think my situation is a little bit different. Growing up, I spoke Navajo. Just even so I had the opportunity to speak Navajo to my parents, my siblings, and so forth. And I took this class because I wanted to learn the proper way of speaking And what I've learned is that you start out with your nouns and then ending with your verb. So a lot of times I just spoke Navajo. There was no properness in anything. I just spoke as it is, whatever that was on my mind. But having to take this class, you have to learn the formality of it. And then what I didn't know also was having to read the Navajo language and how to pronounce the nose hook or the glottals. And that was challenging for me. And then for this semester, I thought it was pretty interesting because one day we were just talking and David was talking about his experience growing up and then learning the Navajo culture and how a group of warriors got together and they learned the whole aspect of what my grandparents taught. So, and then putting that in a live play, that was really interesting to me. So, thank you.
Oh, yeah, thank you, all of you, for fellow classmates, my professor, for doing this play. We came together. There were a couple hiccups, but it was really fun. You all did a great job. So proud of you guys. So, for me, the Navajo language, it's going to be my third language. English was my first. I was born with it. And then so kind of what this play is about. Got taken from home and actually went to Montana, is where I was taken to. And yes, the bag was put over my head. Yes, we took off. If you kind of know a little bit of the Dine Bizaad, you can kind of see that some of the characters are not from Navajo land. We have we went to Zuni, a Zuni for Naash, and one of the Pontus. That wasn't really quite the Byron here. He played. They're very interesting characters, kind of personified where they came from. Trying to put in a little bit about their who they are, as far as I guess the stigma of their tribe. And so there's a lot of deep meaning into it. There's a lot of hidden meaning within this play. And I wanted to incorporate all of our teachings that we've been taught throughout the semesters here. Paddock was able to give us a good challenge of like, hey, let's translate play. We're gonna make a play. We had some good ideas at the beginning of the semester, and then we were kind of still struggling with the structure. I think it's kind of what we're like, oh, we were thinking about a bunch of different things, and so I was asked to say like, hey, what if we do something with kind of your early life? Okay, and then so took the opportunity to try to have some teachings within the play, and then these guys did an amazing job putting their spin on. They all had their own roles, their own groups, to kind of spin the dialogue, to spin their personal feelings, their personal words, and all their knowledge that they've come forth with showed up in this play. So yeah, thank you guys for making this play amazing. Thank you for learning. Continue forward, continue with your education, and it's going to be a beautiful path. So thank you.
I just want to say, well, thank you again, but also I think sometimes when we don't find words in the dictionary and we know the words so there's some negotiating that does happen. Byron, he's the music major, so we're like, Byron, is it a note hook or a regular vowel, or does it have a high tone? You know, what do you hear? So yeah, so he's been able to help in that way, and so so it's been wonderful and to have your work, and just encourage you to continue on and to learn. And I would say this group is a cohort. So they've been together since beginning the first class. And so thank you for being here. Yeah.
Thank now be a good time to open up. If anyone in the audience has any questions about the play, about these individuals or characters, or any type of thing you've heard. Okay, any questions? Just.
So did you, as you were speaking more Navajo, and some of you learning more to speak it, change into Navajo, think Navajo, or think differently about the language?
That's kind of weird that you brought that up. There's certain nights where it's kind of weird to say that because I've never really had this happen ever since until after I've taken a class in this new semesters. But I just like think of these random words off, like they just come in my head. I don't know why. Like I'm not thinking of making a sentence or something. It's just kind of like I just hear like these Navajo words like kind of whisper. It's weird. I don't know. It's kind of I don't really get it sometimes. I think it's I'm reading too many Navajo words or something.
I would say that early on, not so much with the Navajo, but I took about 1.5 years of Japanese before. So in the early stages of learning Navajo, if I didn't know how to pronounce or know a Navajo word, I would automatically transition to Japanese and say that instead. And I would not notice that I inputted that word until I had written it out. But more so now, when I'm at home, a lot of those words that I used to say in Japanese that I learned turned into Navajo. Something that makes me upset, I'll say something in Navajo expression. Or I just think back to like something my grandparents might say to me if I got in trouble. But definitely thinking more in terms of like the grammatical structure. I try not to speak that way in English because it just doesn't sound quite right. But definitely, yeah, I have noticed a change from having to do more critical thinking on the Navajo language on a daily basis, especially for the play.
For me, I never got there because I got to the language lane. So for me, they're two completely different languages. I grew up with English. To me, they're two very completely different languages, and they are. Just because I grew up with English first, that just is with me. So I don't need to answer your question.
For me, when I grew up, I was English speaking. Then when I was 13, I was selected to be part of the guardianship program, and that's where we learned that other language. That's all we did was full immersion to speak that language. And many years of that, and then I came to university here to learn Dine Bizaad and come back. And, okay, pick up my home language where I'm from. And so a big push for that too was my wife. She's from Eastern New Mexico, or Eastern Navajo Nation. But my in-laws, they're very fluent in Navajo. And so I feel like a bad in-law if I can't push myself.
I think David brought up a very good point. If it's a full immersion deal, it'd be very different. I think if I were in a full immersion program, that would happen. Mentoring program. So with the each of the semesters that I've been here, it's my 3rd semester, so the first, second, and including this semester, there is a study going on. It's called the Mentorship Apprentice Program, MAP. And that's where anyone who participates, including myself and a few others here, we meet once a week with a Navajo mentor, someone who's fully fluent in the language and the culture and stories. And that just gives us supplemental instruction. So that just gives us something outside of the scope of what the academic portion of this class would give us. So that gives us extra, it gives me, someone who's brand new, some extra instruction on some of the origin stories, the deeper meanings of these words. Like for chicken, there's a similar word for radio back in the day, chicken bulls and horses. So that's something that's found in the textbooks. That's a nice extra add-on.
Any more questions?
I have a question for Vernita. This is what happened in class, by the way.
Oh,
Vernita. You mentioned that. Good meeting you too. So you're white on the Apache. Did you find any similarities between and the Apache language? And then also the second part, how could you incorporate that into what you're studying now and what you want to do?
Yes, there's a lot of similarities to the words. From my point of view, I feel like Navajo is an extended version of the Apache language. So, and a lot of the Navajo words are like really old words that you guys had, and like some of the Apache words that we don't even have, which I talked with my parents because they are fluent in Apache. And for me to incorporate with what I'm doing, I'm doing American People Studies and Public Management and Policy. I put it to work for my tribe, and if you want to work for any tribe, you have to speak your language, and that's very important. And for me, it will be to understand our elders and teaching our young ones. I think that's very important. And I would just incorporate it within my community, with my family members. And
I took Tsosie-Paddock back in 2019. So I have a question for all of you. Since now that you have been exposed to Navajo and you've seen dictionaries, dialects, and stuff, will you guys be able to carry that with you to your journey on being whatever it is that you guys are here for at the university? It's part of my identity also, and I know it's so hard back on the Navajo reservation that kids these days are now wanting to be out of it too. And it's just kind of hard to bring kids back into the reservation where we want to help people. And then it's so hard to bring in that language back in. You know, I do know a little bit of Navajo, and it's still a struggle that we're trying to teach our young generations into these words that they have to develop at a young age. So I just want to ask you guys, if you guys are willing to, wanting to develop back in your language, back into your home, your, reunifying your identity with it. It could be anyone.
Yeah, I could say absolutely. Like I said, I'm from a Jewish tribe household. Growing up, I've always identified very traditionally, right? So either you're Navajo, you are what your mother is. So despite being enrolled in the Navajo tribe, I tell everybody that I'm Hopi, because that's what my mother is. And I mainly prescribe all my traditional beliefs Hopi leaning, but definitely want to be able to incorporate both languages. And the courses so far has helped with that. I mean, we've even read some pages from certain books that Ms. Paddock has brought in that I definitely would like to purchase, or and be able to read to my kids when the time comes, or even teach, because I'm a music major. Basically, my role, what I want to do in the future, is just teach music. And if I can somehow incorporate that, because I do have some plan to go back to the res and teach, that would just add a whole another dimension that I can use for that. But yeah, definitely I would want to carry that on in my own house.
I do, again, as I mentioned earlier, what I learned here is like a foundation. I am fortunate enough to have extended relatives who are fluent in the language. It's important to me because started with also extended relatives. They attended the Indian boarding schools in the 1960s. What I studied with psychology and sociology is the intergenerational effects of what happened, and it's not good. So what I want to do with my future is, what I'm trying to do now is incorporate teaching the language in a school garden, so that way the students can get outside of the classroom, interconnect with nature, and have tangible teaching. This is the plants, the flowers, the soils, water, air, sun. Learn the language that way, because a lot of times back in the day, they didn't have textbooks. They learned, out in the open, verbally. So that's something I want to bring back. The technical term, academic term, is culturally relevant teaching, and that's something I want to do in the future. And once I have children, start my own family, introduce them. Again, it's a long process. For me, it's just the beginning.
That work for Indian Health Services got me back into school. Like I said, I'm pursuing public health, and during the pandemic, we had a lot of miscommunications with people that were not able to communicate with elders, and that's probably why we had a lot of people that passed. So I was basically sort of recruited to go back to school to help out with IHS and public health, because they do see a need for me to, help in the aspect of, because there's a lot of non-native speakers that work at IHS that don't stay, and they need someone that's there for a very long time to actually develop stuff like that. So that's why I'm back in school.
Any other questions?
And the lady who spoke, she was a kid. I don't know, I forgot her name.
Who spoke about being a kid? Sasha.
Yeah, so how successful have you been at relearning it since you do it as a child? That's probably somewhere in your mind still. Now, are you got back?
Let's see. I wouldn't say I've completely recovered the language. It's kind of like relearning the whole thing. I would say when it's conversational with my grandparents or my dad's the one who was teaching me since I was young. Reconnecting with him has been a big step. It would mostly come with a lot of stories of when I was younger, speaking with them. But
process so far has been pretty good conversationally, especially with my grandparents. I think the only thing that's a barrier would have to be the speed at which they talk. I guess their accent, because they speak so quickly and they have a thick accent when talking. So sometimes I ask them, like, can you slow down? Can you just give me a minute and not get like irritated when I don't understand it as fast? But otherwise, I would say it's been pretty good. As for a level, I would definitely say it's still beginning, just because there are some things that I don't catch on as quickly in terms of like first person, second person, third person of each word. I mostly know it from like first person point of view, and a lot of them they speak it like my stepfather. He would speak it like almost ceremonially. My family speaks a lot of old Navajo, so it's kind of, I don't know, like I'm there but I'm not. So I would say the class has really helped me, like a stepping stone to getting to where I was before. But yeah, with the level, I would say beginning still.
Well, thank you. And I think we have just a couple more minutes. So there's one last question. If not, then I think that was it. Go ahead.
I don't have a question, but I was in Dr. Tsosie-Paddock's first cohort when she first started, when she took over the class, and you all crushed it. I'm just so proud of you. Also, I was the one Apache kid in the Náát'ó class as well, and I took it so that way I could learn language, which is no square over in Mexico. But I don't have.
Yeah, thank you.